Hey lovelies, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's Onyie here, and today we'll be making this beautiful one-hand gathered dress. If you love handmade fashion and you want to learn step by step, you're in the right place. Just a heads up, this dress wasn't made for me, so please ignore the fit. I just wanted to model it quickly so you guys can see the final look. Now let's get right into this video. The first thing we're going to do is to draft our basic bodies, and before we do that, we have to make sure all our tools are in place. Next is to get our neckline. I'll be using a 3x3 neckline, which is 3 inches for the length and 3 inches for the width. So from your border line, take your neckline measurement, and the next thing we're gonna get is our shoulder measurement. I'm using 16 inches for my shoulders. Now 16 inches divided by 2 is 8 inches. After taking that, we're just going to connect our neckline, and from your shoulder line, you're going to come down by 1 inch, just like you see me do. So just come down by 1 inch, and then you connect that line to your neckline. Yes, please note that we're drafting this pattern on fold, okay? So the next thing we're going to do is to get all our vertical measurements starting from the chest line. My chest line is 8 inches, and then my bust line is 11 inches, and my waistline is 17 inches. I'm just going to put all those measurements down, and from the waistline, I'm going to come down by 10 inches. That will serve as our hip line. I'm going to take these measurements down, and I'm going to connect all these points with a straight line. Now, after I'm done connecting all these points, I'm just going to label them. So we have the chest line, the bust line, the waistline, and finally the hip line. Now, the next thing we're going to do is to get our armhole line. To do that, we're going to put down our shoulder line on the chest line, just like you see me do. So I'm putting down 8 inches, which is my shoulder line on my chest line, and I'm going to connect that with my shoulder line up there with a straight line, just the way you see me doing. So that line we connected, we're going to divide it into 2. I got 7 inches, and I'm just going to divide that into 2, which gives me 3.5. I'm going to put that down and then come in by 0.75 and then connect with your armhole curve. Yeah, so the next step is to get our round measurements. So we're going to start from the chest line. The bust I'm using is 41 inches. I'm going to divide that by 4, which gives us 10.25. I'm going to put that down on the chest line, and I'll do the same thing on the bust line. And for the waist, we're using a 33 inches waist. We're going to divide that into 4 and put down the measurement, and we're going to do the same thing for the hip line. So for this dress, we're using a waist dart. So on the waistline, you're going to come in by 4 inches, which is just your nipple to nipple divided by 2. So the nipple to nipple I'm using in this case is 8 inches, and I'm just going to divide that by 2, which gives us a 4 inches. So I'm just going to put that on my waistline and then come up by 5 inches from the waistline. And then from the waistline down to the hip line, just come down by 4 inches, and then we're just going to connect all these points. Please make sure your nipple to nipple measurement is correct on those lines. I'm just going to check to see if it's 4 inches, and then I'm just going to do any other adjustments. So as you can see, I had to cross check that it's matching the 4 inches for our nipple to nipple, and I'm just going to connect all those points with a straight line. So the next thing we're going to do is to get our dart measurement. I'm going to be using 1.5 inches dart, and I'm just going to put that on both sides, which is 0.75 each, and I'm going to connect that to our dart line. Please make sure you follow these steps carefully. This is just me drafting a basic bodice pattern. So I'm going to connect that for the top, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. Yeah, so having done that, we're just going to replace the 1.5 inches for the dart that we took out on the waistline. So what I'm basically doing is putting back 1.5 inches on my waistline that I took out for the dart. And after doing this, I'm just going to connect all the points. Yes, so and with that, we've gotten our basic bodice pattern, and I'm just going to trim out any excess. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to slash through the waistline. Now the reason why we're doing that is because we want to eliminate the dart on the skirt part, which is from the waistline to the hip line. I don't want to sew the dart on that part, so I'm just going to slash it through, and I'm going to close the dart. Yeah, so now I've closed my waist dart. You can see how it's looking. So now we're going to work on the top part of the dress. So on this top bodice, I'm going to make sure I replicate the dart on the other side on this side. Remember, we drafted our pattern on fold, so whatever we have on this other side, we're going to put it on the other side as well. So this is me just replicating the dart on the other side. So we're done with that part. The next thing I'm going to do is to get the midpoint of my armhole. Now my round armhole, I'm going to get the midpoint. So you see me using a marker just to indicate the midpoint of that armhole on the other side. And I'm just going to open my pattern paper, and then I'm going to connect from the neckline, just like you see me do. Use a slight curve. We're going to connect that point with a slight curve, not a straight line, please. Yes, so after connecting the neckline to the midpoint of my armhole, the next thing I'm going to do is to come up from that line by 1 inch. Just watch what I'm doing in this video so it's not too confusing, okay? So just come up by 1 inch from that line, and then just connect to your original neckline. Yes, now after doing that, the next thing we're going to do is to connect the midpoint of our armhole to your dart line, okay? Just watch what I'm doing in this video. The midpoint of your armhole, connect it to your dart leg, okay? And then from that same midpoint of our armhole, we're going to come down by 1.5 inches, okay? From the midpoint of your armhole, just come down by 1.5 inches, and then you're going to connect with a curve to the line, to the dart line. The line we connected here, just connect those points together. Just watch what I'm doing, okay? Yes, so this is what it looks like. In case you don't understand it, just go back and watch how I did it. It's very simple. Okay, so after doing all of this, we're just going to cut it out. Yes, so the next step is to get another piece of pattern paper for the strap extension. Now, if you watch the video of the dress we made, it had a very long strap, so we're just going to attach another piece of pattern paper to our bodies, and then I'm just going to use a paper tape, or you can use a sellotape. I'm using a sellotape, okay, to attach the two pieces just for our strap extension. Yes, so my strap width is 2.5 inch. You can use 2 inches if you want, but I made use of 2.5 inch for my strap width, and for my strap length I use 27 inches. You can use whatever length you want for your strap, but I want my strap very long. You can decide to go short, but I want mine to be long. So 27 inches for your strap length and 2.5 inches for your strap width. And yeah, this is what it's looking like. I'm just going to do the whole strap extension with my fabric and not the paper. This is just a guide. Okay, so we're done with the pattern drafting, and I'm just going to head over to this to my fabric to cut out the pattern pieces. So yeah, this is the fabric we're using for this dress. It's a red, very beautiful Ankara fabric, and I have this in 6 yards, and this is what we'll be using for this. So I'm just going to transfer what we have on our pattern paper to our fabric. Okay, as you can see, I've already done that, and I also went ahead to extend my strap length. Okay, and I also cut out the lining pieces, which is our interfacing for the top. Now, mind you, this dress is not going to have like a zipper at the center back. That's why we didn't split, the pattern paper into two. So we're going to be using the front to cut both the front and the back pieces, okay? And then our zipper is going to be on the side. And I also went ahead to cut out the skirt pieces. As you can see, there's no dart for the skirt. That's because we closed up the darts for the skirt, and that's it. So, and for the ruffle part at the bottom, what I did was to take out my upper bodies, which is 27 inches. Remember, my front half length is 17 inches plus my hip line, which is 10 inches, and that gives us 27 inches. I'm going to take it out from the full length of the dress, which is 62 inches. Now, 62 minus 27, that gives us about 35 inches. So that will be the length of the ruffle. And if you've been on my channel for, from when we started, you know how we do this ruffle thing. So it's your round hip, that's your hip circumference, times 2.5 or 3 inches if you want it fuller. That will give you the width of the ruffle. So for the width of my ruffle, my round hip is 46 inches times 2.5 inches, and that gave me 116 inches. So I just rounded it up to 120 inches, and that's what we'll be using for the width of the ruffle, and the length of the ruffle is 35 inches. So the next thing I did was to indicate the wrong side of the fabric, because this fabric looks the same. They look almost identical on both sides. So just to make sure I'm not confused, I'm just going to indicate the wrong side and the right side. Yeah, so after doing all that, I'm just going to pin down the neckline of both my interfacing and the main fabric. Okay, so I'm going to pin down the neckline all the way to the strap, and I'm just going to head over to my sewing machine and stitch that down, including the armhole and the darts. Okay, make sure you stitch your darts as well. So when you're stitching your darts on the back bodies, make sure you stitch it up to your chest line. Okay, the front darts stop 1 inch below the bust line. That's for the front, but the back, when you're stitching it, make sure you extend it up to your chest line so it can lay flat when you press it. Yeah, so now I'm done stitching all those parts, and I'm just going to notch the parts I stitched. Make sure you notch these parts so that when you're ironing, everything can relax properly. Yeah, so after notching, I'm just going to turn everything to the right side of the fabric, starting from the strap, and I'm just going to give this a very good press. Okay, just watch what I'm doing to understand better. Yeah, so this is what our dress is looking like now. I've gone ahead to close the side seam of one side. Remember, we're using a zipper on the side. The zipper is not going to be on the center front, it's going to be on the side. So I stitched the side seam of one side and I left the other side opened. And I'm just going to go ahead and give everything a very good press. So at this point, you can see how nice our dress is looking. So the next thing I'm going to do is to join the shoulders. Now this shoulder part is something that you have to pay close attention to. Okay, so I'm just going to open one part of the shoulder and I'm just going to put in the other part of the shoulder through that opening. Okay, and then I would flip over to the wrong side of the fabric and then bring out the shoulder, the other part of the shoulder we put in. Okay, so just watch this carefully so you can understand. So I'm just going to put them side by side and make sure it fits properly, and then I'm just going to get my pins and I'm going to pin that area down and take it to my sewing machine and stitch it up. Yeah, so at this point I'm done sewing the shoulder and I'm just making sure I trim off any excess around that area. So after doing that, I'm just going to flip it over so we can see what our shoulder is looking like. Okay, yeah, so as you can see, our shoulder is looking nice. I'm just pulling through to make sure it sits properly on the shoulder. Okay, and I'm just going to give this a very good press. So having done that, the next step is to attach the skirt parts, which is the bottom part, to the bodies. So I'm just going to do that and then show you what it looks like. Yeah, so this is what our dress is looking like. As you can see, it's looking all nice. I'm going to close this side, and this part will be where we'll be attaching our zipper. And I already went ahead to stitch this down by 2 inches just to hold this pattern. So this is the zipper we're using. You can use an invisible zipper if you want, but I'm using this invisible head zipper, and I'm just going to attach my zip with 1 inch. So see the way this part is, I'm just going to fold. Yeah, I'm going to fold this head and I'm going to just close. I'm going to close this part and pin it down. So after pinning it down, I'm just going to head over to my sewing machine and I'm just going to stitch this up. Yeah, so I've already attached the zipper, and the next step will be to attach the gathered part of the dress to the top bodies. Okay, now I'm just going to pin down the gathered part to the dress and then go over to the sewing machine and sew that down. So we're done with the dress now, and this is what it is looking like. It's looking very fine. I beg, if you don't watch this video reach this point, please subscribe, like, and drop your thoughts in the comment section. I'd like to hear from you. Thank you guys for watching. See you on the next one. Bye.